I'm a high IQ guy, but I think the highest IQ on earth is having the ability to live your dream life. And so prosperity is having the ability to know what that is and create that.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today's guest is Randy Gage, known as the Entrepreneur's Whisperer. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. Here's the thing about Randy. He went from a jail cell as a teenager to becoming a multi-millionaire entrepreneur. But more importantly, he spent 3 decades helping people rewrite their mental programming that's been blocking prosperity their entire lives. We're talking about those mind viruses, the memes, the hidden beliefs you picked up as a kid and are literally sabotaging your success today. Randy's got a provocative theory. The richest superhero stories in Hollywood aren't accidents. They're programming you to believe that money is bad and rich people are evil. We talk about that all the time. Stick around to the end of the episode because you're going to understand exactly what the safest thing you can do is to actually take more risks. And that's just the beginning. Let's meet Randy. Welcome to Richer Soul, Randy Gage. It's great to have you join us today.
Hey, Rocky, thanks for bringing me in.
I'm excited to learn from you. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, what did my family and school teach me about money is that there was none. So let's start with that as the base premise. And that led me on a very curious journey, which culminated when I was about 15 years old, when I went to jail for burglary and armed robbery, and waging my one-man campaign to bring the principles of Robin Hood into the modern realm. And that worked great until it didn't. And I ended up in jail sitting there waiting for a trial date. So that was kind of a seminal moment. But that was driven by being poor and hating to be poor and wanting to get even with this world that I thought was so unfair, that there were these certain people who had money and I didn't. And then what was the other part of the question?
What was it like when you were growing up?
Oh, well, the other element that was maybe made it so strange is I'm on the spectrum, but this was before we knew what the spectrum was. Autism wasn't even a diagnosis until 85. I was born in 59. So my poor mother just thought, I just have this weird kid. My teachers and counselors thought, well, he's stunted or retarded or weird or we don't know what, but he doesn't fit in the mold. And from my standpoint, I was like, obviously, aliens from another planet took me and dropped me in a basket on my mother's doorstep, and she adopted me because I'm certainly not like the rest of these people in this family and this neighborhood and this school. And I didn't fit in.
When you say you didn't fit in, like, what does that mean?
For me, it played out. I was just this insecure, pathologically shy, social anxiety, bookworm, read hours and hours a day in my room and never did any organized sports or friendships out, stuff like that. I was just a lonely kid in my room.
What kind of books were you reading at the young age?
I was reading Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. And then I graduated to espionage, spy novel, thrillers, those kind of things.
They didn't teach you how to get away with the crime, huh?
I guess not. I mean, they did for a while, but evidently I didn't read enough chapters to get to the part about, getting away with it.
It's funny that a socially shy bookworm turns to the life of crime.
It was the poverty that I was so jealous because I went to school. I took a bus to school, and my school wasn't next door. I took a bus. So I was going to school with these kids who lived around the school, and they had homes. They had their own bedroom. They had their own Schwinn 10-speed bicycles and go-karts and mini bikes. And then when they turned 16, mommy or daddy bought them a new car. And they went on vacations to like cool places, to other countries even. And I'm here sitting in my apartment. I'm sharing a bedroom with my brother. My sister is sharing a bedroom with my mother. The four of us are sharing one bathroom. We have a beat up old station wagon. We could go anywhere we wanted for vacation every year, as long as it was Wisconsin Dells and the Tommy Bartlett Water Show. And I was just like, that's not right. I want more.
So you got caught.
Yeah.
Then what?
I was so blessed. There was a man who came to see me. He was the father of a girl I went to school with. And after I got arrested, they just sent a letter to my mom and said, he's expelled, don't bother sending him back. And this girl I had gone to school with, her father was a teacher, and she begged him, go and visit Randy, save him. He's rotting away in jail. And he came in and told me that I didn't belong there and I was capable of great things. And I told him he was full of, what? And instead of smacking me upside the head, which he should have done probably, he said, no, I talked to all your teachers before I came in. They tell me you skip school for 3 weeks in a row and you show up and you ace the test the next day. Your reading comprehension level is higher than college graduates. You don't belong here. You could do great things. And after having been sitting in that jail cell watching the second hands tick on the clock out in the hallway, I was at an introspective enough place in my life that I could hear that message. And I desperately wanted to believe it. So I believed it.
Did you not know that beforehand?
I did not know that beforehand.
It's funny how we're unaware of our gifts sometimes.
Yes, many times. I mean, I was aware of things like every teenager goes through I believe most or all teenagers go through a phase of, hey, I know there's no God. I've figured everything out. You guys are so dumb. I know how the world works now. Unfortunately for me, I was doing that at 4 and 5, So, and But I didn't put that together to say, and I knew what these teachers were going to talk about. I knew I could ace those tests. I thought they're just dumb people who don't know how to make tests, or they're going to recite all this stuff. They want me to memorize all day. This is the most boring crap I've ever seen in my life. Why would I show up for this every day? So I knew like I didn't fit in, but I didn't translate that to being gifted, because of course there was no gifted programs in those days. That didn't exist either. And what I heard all the time was my mother had been dating this guy, and what I heard, who was like the father figure a little bit, what I heard from him was, how can someone so smart be so stupid? And if I heard that once, Rocky, I heard it 10,000 times. And I didn't see myself as gifted in any way. I just saw myself as, I definitely don't fit in on this planet.
So what happened? He gave you that advice, and then?
I had a wonderful public defender who believed in me. I had a wonderful judge who believed in me enough to give me another chance. I got out, and this guy was a teacher at an alternative school that they were testing out called the School Without Walls. And like, if you wanted to be a plumber, you'd go and apprentice with a plumber. If you wanted to teach a class, if you could create a syllabus and a curriculum and got an advisor to one of the teachers, you could teach a class. So I taught a class on contemporary political science because I was a political wonk. I loved politics. But I didn't stay there long. I think maybe 1 or 2 semesters. And then I just knew I need to be out in the world making money, because that I had left the house when I was 15. I told my mom, I don't want to live by your rules. I want to get my own place, whatever. And she was like, okay, Mr. Wise Guy, go out and get it, thinking I would be back in 2 weeks. But of course, I never went back. So I needed to work. So, but I had learned the lesson of being in jail, and I had made the commitment, okay, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to play by the rules. I'm going to learn this game of how you survive in this world and get ahead without doing it dishonestly.
I'm thinking back to when you were growing up. You were just past the 60s at this point, right? It'd be the early 70s.
Yeah.
From a political standpoint and turmoil, it doesn't seem much different than today. But people don't realize that, because most people miss that correlation of how much there are connections to that.
Especially for me, because I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a total university town. So you have this very small city, which is deluged with 50,000 students who come from somewhere else. Very liberal, very progressive. This is the height of the Vietnam War protests. The Mass Army Research Center is blown up in Madison by a guy named Carl Armstrong, and their researcher there is working on the weekend. Building is supposed to be empty, but he was there, so he gets killed. So there's a manhunt for this guy. Ohio State is happening. Burning buildings down in Chicago is happening. It was a riotous time. And yeah, the difference today is we have social media and smartphones, which just accelerates the hate, the polarization, the otherization, the demonization.
That it is. And I think that's what people don't realize. This has been happening throughout history. It's just the next round. The difference is this is the first round that everyone gets a front row immediate seat to.
Right.
And so they're just not used to that. And it's nonstop, because if it leads, it leads. So you just can't turn it off. Back then, the news came on at 6:00 and it was over at 6:30, and then you were done and you got your half an hour of negativity.
Right.
And then you went back to, TV back then was different. So
we got 24-hour cable news shows can be on that rinse and repeat cycle all day, all night, 7 days a week.
True. So you start to turn around, and then what?
I go out in the world. I want to be a successful entrepreneur. I try a restaurant. It doesn't work. I have to give it back to the guy I leased it from. I try some other things. I try another restaurant. When I'm like 30, a partner and I start a delivery and takeout pizza joint. We don't really have I've made some money, right? I get involved in network marketing along the way, by the way, which teaches me about self-development some. I get into that. I make some money. So what do? Like an idiot, I take this chunk of money I've earned and I say, what do I know? I know the restaurant business. Let me open another restaurant. So I end up, long story short, the business gets seized by the IRS. And they auction it off at the courthouse, leave me 55 grand in debt. And this is back in the day. And so this 55 grand is like 55 million to me today compared to my earnings ability then versus now, right? And I ended up selling all my furniture, sleeping on the floor, everything, the whole routine. But that was the real seminal moment, the turnaround point. I had learned a little about self-development. Now I dove into it 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, Prosperity by Charles Fillmore, As a Man Thinketh, The Magic of Thinking Big, The Richest Man in Babylon, Earl Nightingale cassette albums, right? And I really got into the study of prosperity, which I have been in ever since.
So, what does prosperity mean to you?
Okay, so while you say that, it reminds me I should offer everybody listening or watching right on randygage.com, my website. There's a free PDF on the homepage, the 7 elements of an abundant life. So that's the perfect answer to your question, right? What is that? What is prosperity? It's to me, I'm a high IQ guy, but I think the highest IQ on earth is having the ability to live your dream life. And so prosperity is having the ability to know what that is and create that. And I actually believe there's 4 elements of prosperity. That money, like first one would be resources. And that's where money and material things come in. So they're part of that, right? But then there's health and wellness is another quadrant. The third one I would call harmony or spiritual harmony. Some people that's religious, some people it's secular, some people it's just more spiritual. But meaning you're comfortable in your own skin. You got clarity, you got calm mind, you're peaceful. And then the fourth quadrant I call significance, because I believe at some point, if you go like I do, I went out and I made all this money and I bought all these exotic cars and I flew private and I got all the bling bling and all of that stuff. And then you realize, I want to move from success to significance. I want to know that because I was here, this earth will be a little bit better when I leave it. And I think those 4 quadrants, that's the real answer to your question.
So, when we started this podcast, I came up with kind of these quadrants. They're not exactly quadrants. First and foremost, you have to really define your purpose. And I think for a lot of people, they think that's got to be like, I'm going to change 1 million people and change the planet. I'm like, no, you can just have a very simple purpose in life. It doesn't need to be great, but you truly have to want to do it. And I think a lot of people don't even know their purpose and they chase someone else's purpose. The second thing was you got to have the right mentality, the right mindsets, understanding it both internally and externally. So, what's the noise in your head? And what's the noise you're seeing outside your head that's affecting the noise in your head? And then it comes down to the basics, what you talked about very much so, which is health, right? Time, money, time freedom, how we are relationship wise, and then that spirituality. And I think for the longest time we use the word balance, but the reality is there's no such thing as balance. You can't balance those things because they're never going to be in balance. So how do you kind of create what you use that same word harmony across it? And how do you find that? And I have found the more I've met people, everyone's got some sort of take towards that in slightly different words. You said significance, and that's one. I went and saw Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins talks about significance. He talks about it in a negative way. And in his world, significance is ego, that I'm significant. But it sounds to me like you do it more as how am I giving back and so forth? How am I growing? And how am I making the world a better place? And so,
Yeah, I think your purpose quadrant and my significance quadrant are probably one and the same.
mm,
Because again, when I say because there is, I hate to use the tropes like how many shirts can you wear in a day, how many watches can you wear. I get that because I don't like to use them because that's negative connotation. We know money, like any other thing, is at its ultimate level is energy vibration, and energy can be attracted, energy can be repelled. So when we say things like it's just money or they're just things, we would be creating negative energy and repelling them. So I don't want to fall prey to that, but you also have to see the whole picture, which is, yeah, just like I have a accelerator program for entrepreneurs who want to scale business, levels of process. So there's 3 levels. So like at the high level, I get people who they got the money thing out of the way. They're already flying private. They got 4 houses. They got 10 exotic supercars downstairs. They got all the watches to bling bling, but their marriage is falling apart, or their kids aren't speaking to them, or they're 65 pounds overweight and they never know when the heart attack is going to come. So they're there to learn the other side of the equation, right? People at the beginning of the program, they usually are just there for the money. They say, no, I need to know, how do I make more than $1 million a year? They don't care about the other stuff, but then they learn, oh no, that other stuff does matter, right? And the significance comes from mentoring people. I mean, if I could just tell you the number of pee-wee football and little league teams and martial arts scholarships and things that I provided, right? Because that's significance to me is, and I don't even meet the kids a lot of the most of those teams. I know the coach and I sponsor it and I never see it. I don't ask for a banner. I don't put my name on the team. I don't care about any of that. I just want, like, there's some kids in a foster care place that I sponsored martial arts training because I believe for kids, that's so good to learn the mental side of things, the self-discipline. That brings you significance when you do stuff like that, mentoring people and charities, organizations, foundations, giving back. And there's so much reward in that from a prosperity standpoint. So yeah, I'm be very different than Tony sounds like on that philosophy, because I don't think it's about me at all. I think it's about the legacy that you're creating for after you're gone.
and I forget the exact words he uses the words contribution. So for him, what you're calling significance is what he calls contribution. It's semantics. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I know he does a huge like Thanksgiving meal drive every year, and it does some really great work in that area. So he's certainly into that.
So why do you think these people end up in that place, right? They've got the house, they've got everything, they're flying private, they've got the beautiful cars, and yet their life is a disaster.
They got programmed. They're under the control of mind viruses. And I don't mean some alien super laser beam. I'm saying we're programmed with mind viruses, memes. Like you hear memes a lot today. They say, oh, did you see that meme on X? They think a meme is a photo. No, the word meme actually comes to us from Sir Richard Dawkins in his book, The Selfish Gene. He was looking for what's the equivalent to genetics as we evolve. And he's found that for the first time in our history, we adapt more to social influence than we do from our hereditary DNA, that we get brainwashed. We get our subconscious mind programmed with things. So I wrote a really intriguing book on this subject that their heads explode when they read it. It's called Radical Rebirth. But I break down the 6 most important areas of beliefs that we have about life, health, happiness, right? 6 areas. So, and then I break down what is the programming in each one of those areas. What are the memes, the negative, like money and success? What are the memes in this area? Money is bad. Rich people are evil. It's noble to be poor. It's spiritual to be poor. If you're going to be a hard charging, successful career woman, you've got to be a terrible mother. If you're going to open a business, you have to plunder the environment and exploit your employees. You're a greedy capitalist pig. Billionaires shouldn't exist. Those are the memes we have in the world today. Look at it's happening right now. We got this billionaire tax in California. Bernie Sanders was on yesterday saying, forget California. We're going to take this everywhere. We're going to get the billionaires. We're going to take their money and we're going to make sure that all the teachers make at least $60,000 a year. Sounds good. Looks good on paper. Just doesn't work in the real world if you take away the rewards of achievement and accomplishment and hard work. There's no reason for people to do hard work anymore. If you want to have a nanny state that's going to provide all our socialistic needs, of course, go to Cuba, take a look at how that works. Go to North Korea, take a look at how that works. It's a broken model. It's a bad premise. But those are the memes, right? There's memes about God and religion. There's memes about health and wellness. There's memes about marriage and relationships. And you're programmed with most of those by the time you're 8 years old. So people say, oh, come on, Gage, are you telling me I blew up my marriage at 38 years old because of the programming I got when I was 6 or 7? Like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Are you telling me I got fired and sabotaged my career at 22 or 42 because of programming I had about money and success when I was? Exactly. That's the answer to your question. When you say, how did they get all this money and they got all that and they're miserable? Because they bought into the programming they have and they don't even know they're brainwashed with it.
I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page because I very much believe in what you said. I don't know that it has changed. What I mean by that is if you think back to, and I don't know what it was like because I was never there, but if you grew up in a small community of 100, 150 people, you were programmed back then on how that community did things. So I think it's always been the case. It's a human thing that you get programmed. What may have shifted is societally, we don't do good programming anymore, right? And maybe that's what it is. The advent of TV, marketing, and culture.
That is the chapter in the book. When you say, what's different? If you grew up in 150 people, it was a little community, out in Africa with the tribe, a village raises a child or whatever Hillary said. Here's the difference. Social media, the internet, and how we can scale brainwashing. So what I did in this book I got to get to this page because you'll just die when you see this. I'm talking about the programming, like in the movies and TV and whatever generation you are, right? You could be a baby boomer like me, X, Y, Z, whatever. I will show you in your particular generation, what were the hit shows? What were the hit movies? What were the hit books, plays, operas, songs on the radio? And then we can look at the subconscious programming of them. So, as example, what was the first big blockbuster superhero movie? It was the first Spider-Man. There's a place in the movie where little Peter Parker is talking to his uncle who's raising him because his parents are dead, right? And he says something and his uncle says, "We may not be rich, but at least we're honest." Well, wait a sec. What does that mean? Let's translate that to English. We may not be rich, but at least we're honest. Of course, we know what it means. Rich people are evil. Money is bad. You should be grateful we're poor because that means we're honest, hardworking, salt of the earth people. Now, why is Peter being raised by his uncle? Because he's an orphan, right? Now, here's what we know about mind viruses. We know that the more emotional they are, the stronger they propagate. Because what a mind virus does is it parasitizes the host and causes you to replicate it. So if you hear that Taylor Swift song, now it's like an earworm. Now you're in the elevator, you hum the song. Now it's an earworm to the lady and the guy next to you. And it's in their mind. A thing like "Just Do It" for Nike, that's a meme. Where's the beef? That's a meme. But again, the more emotion there is, the faster and the further they spread around the world, the stronger they anchor in your subconscious mind. So here's a question. What would be more emotional to a mother or a father or a child than a protagonist who loses their mommy and their daddy and they're an orphan, right? So why is the Peter Parker story so interesting? Because he's an orphan. So that program. So you're at the movie, you think, I'm just eating my Milk Duds and my popcorn and I'm watching a cool flick. No, you're being brainwashed that money is bad, rich people are evil, and it's spiritual to be poor. So I thought, let's just break down, because isn't it funny that Spider-Man is an orphan and Superman is an orphan and Batman is an orphan. So let me just take a hot minute. So this is the chapter in the book. Here's the orphans in our literature: Tarzan, Snow White, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, James Bond, Captain America, Heidi, the Boxcar Children, Mowgli or whatever, the Jungle Book Kid, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, Pied Piper, Little Orphan Annie, Hawkeye, the superhero, David Copperfield, Kung Fu Panda, Poison Ivy, Batman, Robin, Laura Croft, Finn from Star Wars, Han Solo from Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker, Luke and Leia Skywalker, Rey Skywalker, The Mandalorian, Worf, Michael Burnham from Star Trek, Cinderella, The Fly, Frodo Baggins, Superman, Supergirl, Firefly, Harry Potter, Black Manta, Daredevil, Green Hornet, Oliver Twist, Professor X, Wolverine, Magneto, Cyclops, John Wick, Jon Snow, Daenerys Targaryen, and pretty much anyone with the surname of Stark. Now that was, I think in 24 is when I wrote this book. So that was just up to this point. I can take you whatever the news shows are today. And so you say, what is this? Is this like a Hollywood secret conspiracy to always make the protagonist an orphan? No, because these authors don't even know they're doing it. If you decide you want to write superhero comic books, you want to write comic books like the ones you loved as a kid. If you want to write, direct movies, you want to produce movies like the ones you loved as a kid. TV show writer, same thing. So these people get and I show how the hero's journey works in the same way through all the shows, all the generations. Unrequited love from, Romeo and Juliet all the way to Game of Thrones. Again, any generation you are, I can show you, here's the programming that infected you to be sick, ignorant, and broke. Step one, you recognize that programming you have. That's why I broke it down in the book. Like, you got to look at that and say, okay, what are my core foundational beliefs about marriage and relationships? Did my mother cheat on my father? Was one abusive to the other? Were they arguing in the house all the time? Did they get divorced when I was 11? Your core foundational beliefs about relationships were set by that young age. So you go out, but now if you go and look at it and say, oh my God, that's what I did. I created a bad premise based on what I learned as a child. And then I went out and I made it come true. So you recognize the negative programming. You got to blow it up. And then you got to replace it with empowering programming. So instead of saying, yeah, money is bad and all rich people are evil, you replace it with the programming of, man, what good I could do if I was a billionaire. And now you've completely flipped the script.
This episode of Richer Soul is sponsored by the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you're a business owner who wants to scale and grow, increase profits, or want to have strategic conversations around your financials, then check out the podcast. You'll learn how to work less, increase cash flow, increase profits, and build reserves to help you weather storms. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform.
By the way, there's a reason I asked you the first question I asked you. It's so that people start to ask themselves, what is my money story? What is my money programming? Where did it come from? And what beliefs do I hold? And for a lot of people, they've never had that conversation.
Never.
And of course, it's the same principle. You can apply that to every single part of your life. How did I come to believe X, Y, Z? Whatever. And the same thing is true for spirituality, because most people don't pick their religious beliefs.
Right.
They follow whatever their parents programmed. And they don't think about that. They don't actually challenge it. Hell, most of them don't even know what it is that they truly believe. If they went to that book or whatever that is and read it, they might be shocked, because even the people who are telling you what it is probably don't have a good understanding of what it actually says or does.
Well, you will love the chapter in that book on God and religion.
There you go. And again, I think for every part of life, this holds true. It hits for each part. You work a lot with entrepreneurs and business people. And, it's funny because when I have gone to self-development programs, I've noticed that the majority of the crowd is either one of two people. They are business owners or solopreneurs or people in the business world, or somebody the business owner brought along to show them something new.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why that's the case. I think because
that's part of the significance. We're like giving back. We're trying to show people, like for me, teaching the principles of prosperity, I always tell people, I just think you get there faster if you're an entrepreneur instead of an employee. It doesn't mean an employee can't become prosperous. You can.
Right.
Okay. Michael Eisner or whoever is the CEO of Disney, they make $40 million, $80 million a year. That's a pretty good paycheck.
Yeah.
But for most people, they create more wealth sooner if they're an entrepreneur. And I think we become evangelical about it. And we like, for me, I like to take my best employees and help them develop into entrepreneurs.
And it's not so much that part of it, it's the fact that people who aren't entrepreneurs don't naturally seek out self development to that level, is what I found interesting. And I'm not sure. I do know that entrepreneurship, by its very nature, forces you to self develop. Because if you're going to be a good entrepreneur, you've got to level up your game because you're constantly tested. And so I just found that interesting. And I don't know exactly why it is.
Well, I'm really glad you picked up on that because I think that's true as well. Everybody there always asking me, how does your Breakthrough You program work? Or what's the philosophy behind your books or behind your work? And I say, it all boils down to transformation. The reason entrepreneurs come to me, they go through this program, is I'm going to help them curate their program of transformation to become the highest possible version of yourself. Now, if your goal is, hey, I got this job, I got a nice paycheck, they contribute to my health insurance, my 401. The best thing I can do is keep my head below the cubicle and get through till Friday. Then I can go home, I can binge on Netflix all weekend, come back Monday, repeat it. And if I can carry this forward till I'm 65 or 66, I can retire. Why are you driven to self-development? You wouldn't be, right? But if you're a real entrepreneur and you say, like I owned a hairstyling salon, right? And you do 50% of your business on Friday and Saturday. So every one of my stylists knew, and I told them every Friday I gave them their paycheck and I'd say, here's your paycheck. You know, you cannot take this to the bank because there's not enough money to cover it. So if you need this money right away, you go to a liquor store, the supermarket where they cash the check, where it's going to hit my account on Monday because I need the sales from Friday and Saturday. That's what it's like in the real world of being an entrepreneur. That's you don't hear that. Everybody wants to be Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Gary Vee. And hey, there's a romanticism about that. But all those guys and everyone else who's ever been an entrepreneur, they've been in the other situation, right? I remember Jason Calacanis talking about having coffee with Elon Musk and asking him how it's going with his crazy new Tesla car company. And Elon said, I got, I think, 2 weeks and then I'm completely out of money. And then Jason sent him a check, I think, for 10 grand or something and said, hey, these new cars sound interesting. I'd like to put a deposit on a couple of them. And so I don't know, but at one time, Jason had model number 001 and another one was 003 because he had given that check to Elon when Elon really didn't know if he was going to be able to cover payroll next week. That's what the real world of entrepreneurs is like. And so, yeah, to your point, you better get good at transformation. You better get good at self-development because that's the only way you're going to survive.
No, and that is what I've noticed. They are the people who are almost forced into it, or maybe it's just something about people who are willing to take a risk and do something different that they're naturally inclined to self-development. I'm not exactly sure, but I have noticed that throughout. And I know we talked beforehand, since we're talking about money and entrepreneurs, the role of a CFO or a finance person for business owners. You had said you had some thoughts on it.
Yeah. Because I consult with companies, right? So I learned early on, bet on yourself. So I would go into a company and they say, like, for instance, here's real world example. Whatever year it is when the Dodge Viper is first coming out, it isn't even out yet. I'm home one night, I'm watching TV. Lee Iacocca comes on and he's standing in front of a red Dodge Viper. That's the sexiest car since the Earth's crust cooled, as far as I'm concerned. When it's sitting still, it looks like it's going 250 mile an hour. I'm like, I got to have one of those. So it's like a month later, I'm negotiating with a client company that they want me to do consulting with them. So we're doing the whole contract, and I say it's this much initiation fee, this much a month, blah, blah, blah. And then I say, and at this time, I think they were doing about $200,000 a month with their sales. So I say, and in this contract, I need you to add a clause that the first month you hit $2 million in sales, you're going to deliver me a new Dodge Viper down in Florida. The CFO throws up all over that. No way, deal killer, can't happen. Matt, don't agree to this. You can't do it. Matt's like, come on. No, Matt, you can. The taxes, he gets in an accident, he kills someone, they'll try and sue us. The insurance and transferring the title, it's a deal killer. And Matt, the CEO, fortunately thinks like a CEO. And he said, never mind. Of course, we'll do the deal. You get 2 million, you get us to 2 million a month. I'll be happy to deliver the Viper myself, right? That's where I got my first Dodge Viper. So I'm always doing deals like this, and it's always the CFO who's trying to kill my deal. So I hate CEOs, right? I think they're all possessed by demons. But now my opinion of them has changed so much because I have learned how helpful a good CEO can be to a company. So this is the clip of this podcast you take out and you promote your little CFO gig, okay? Because I mean, I now know like they're the ones sitting with the CEOs and the founders like me who say, I have this great idea. I want to take $5 million and open this division, or I want to launch this company. And they say, okay, let's talk about the cash flow. Let's talk about the debt service. Let's talk about, let's find the creative way we can do this. But if you just launch it like this in 4 months from now, your cash flow isn't going to exist and you're going to go out of business. And I learned, wow, you know what? When you get, and this is one of the people in my top level of the entrepreneur program, that's literally what we're working on right now, is hiring his first CFO and making sure he gets the right person. And then you realize, wow, this really is, when you get the right person, it's like supercharged the growth of the company. Whereas when I was younger and more naive, I just saw them as bean counters, and that would be the last person I would want the company to hire.
So I would look at the situation and go, $2 million in revenue, and we deliver a Viper per month. Can we get 6 more? If you hit me 2 million, then I can afford to pay for 6 of those. And that's cheaper than the Facebook ads that you're currently spending to get there, or whatever it is. So you have to look at the return on your investment. And it's really that. It doesn't matter whether it's a Viper, 150 grand bonus, or whatever the car cost. It's a question of, is this the highest and best use for money in the business, and what is the return going to be? And it's nothing more than simple math. If the math says yes, you do it. If the math says no, you don't. But you remove the emotion from a lot of these decisions. And I think that's true of all decisions we make. I think a lot of people make decisions based on emotions, not on the facts, or they make them on programming. Well, we can't do that because of XYZ. And it goes back to that. So that's the key.
2 points to that. 100% what you say about the emotions. And the other thing, though, I think, to be fair to CFOs, is I think that was just the way they were trained back then. In the 90s, that was. In the 2000s, they were like, you're the guardian of the cookie jar, protect the money, protect the company. People didn't necessarily look to them as the visionary, pull the business forward, like doctors, right? Doctors were never taught nutrition, exercise, any of that. They were taught, here's how you cut out an organ. Here's how you prescribe a drug. Now, today, they realize like, yeah, maybe we should give doctors a little more broader based training and we should talk about some of this stuff. And because I think there's just been a change, and you'll know better than me because you're in the field, but me as an outsider, it seems like their training or their perspective of their role has evolved over the last couple of decades, and they do seem to be more visionary. Hey, let's think about the return on investment. Let's think about how this decision might grow the company instead of just exclusively thinking about covering their ass to protect the company.
I think it depends. I think that's still probably more the minority
Yeah.
versus the majority. And again, it just depends on the situation, the place, and everything else. But I don't know that that is the norm. And, it's funny when I meet an older CFO, of course, because I'm older, and I'm like, if you haven't already built your wealth, I don't trust you as a CFO. Because if you can't handle your own money, how the hell are you going to handle someone else's? And so it goes back to your meme, right? Do they really know how to do what they say they're going to do? And, it's funny. Nobody will hire an out of shape fat person for a trainer, but we'll do that for a doctor.
I could regale you as I went in I'm waiting for an appointment. I had this sinus issues. I hear the doctor before I see him because he wheezing like Darth Vader. His stomach comes around the corner about a minute before he does. He gets in the room, and this is about 25 years ago, but because he had a pack of Marlboro Red in the lab coat. And then he tells me, we're going to need to do whatever that thing, the deviated septum. We're going to do this surgery. And I told him, I don't mean to be a jerk, but I have to tell you, you're the last doctor on earth I would ever let operate on me. I went to San Francisco for an investment conference. They had the penny stock guy and they had the gold guy and they buy money, real estate with no money down. It was like 3 days, thousands of dollars this conference cost. It's at a real, the Fairmont Hotel or one of those. So the whole trip is probably 8-10 grand. And this is back a few years. And I'm sitting there for a day and a half and I'm thinking, there's not one person on this stage who makes more money than I do. So they can't teach me how to make money. So my best thing to do is to get on a plane, call the airline, get an earlier flight, and go home. And I didn't cry about it. I didn't ask for a refund. I just said, I will grow my wealth better if I go home and go back and work in my business than if I'm listening to these wannabes. And now, I don't care if they're 350 pounds and they smoke 10 packs a day. If they make more money than I do, they can teach me about making money. But my personal trainer, he better have 12-pack abs. He better have beautiful skin. You know what I mean? He better just be the healthiest specimen I ever saw. Otherwise, and I don't care if he only has $3 to his name. If he's got 12-pack abs and beautiful biceps, then he can teach me about sculpting my physique.
And that is the key. And I think too often we assume that a person good at one thing is good at all things. And that's another meme. Most of them might be good at one thing. They're horrible at everything else. One of the things you say is that risky is safe. What does that mean?
I wrote a book titled Risky is the New Safe. Because like today, the biggest thing in our world at the moment is AI. And people think it's risky. I don't know. I don't want to experiment with but the riskiest thing you could do with AI right now is ignore it. Because it's going to eat your lunch. It's going to eat your company. It's going to eat you up if you do nothing. So risky to take a risk and say, hey, I'm going to bring in someone. I'm going to invest some money. I'm going to experiment with some AI technology. That's the safest thing to do. And I think much more than people think. The safest thing is to take more shots on goal, and the riskiest thing is playing not to lose.
100% of shots not taken don't make it in the goal.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is fascinating. Yeah. And the other one that I know that's kind of a meme is if you don't ask, you already have your no.
Right. For sure.
So you have to do those things. Is there anything we should have talked about but didn't get a chance to?
I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, we can talk about entrepreneurship for a 15-hour podcast and never cover 5% of it. It would just encourage people who feel like they have that urge, that drive to be a builder, to put their hat in the ring, to you don't have to quit your job and invest your life savings and roll all the dice. Go out and experiment, get a side gig, test something out, try some business ideas, get a mentor, do the research, ask AI. Hey, go into your chat GPT or your Claude and say, hey, with what you know about my skills, with what you know about my experience, with what you know about my philosophy, if I were to become an entrepreneur, where would can you give me 10 different things that I might want to experiment with or consider? Then bounce those ideas off a mentor, do some critical thinking about it, and then go out and take a prudent, measured attempt at it.
I'll give you one piece of advice. Don't open a restaurant.
Yeah.
They have a very high failure rate. It's not what you think it is.
Rocky. Every time I walk by, there would be some empty storefront or some restaurants going out of business. I think, if I put a restaurant in here now, with what I know now about marketing, with what I know now about copywriting, what I know now about franchising, I'm just stop it, because I've built this beautiful lifestyle business, right? Which really I schedule my free time off. I have my dream life. I live in a beautiful home. I'm in a little island between Miami and Miami Beach. I have water view all around me, and I love my life. So, but there may be some point where I say, I'm going to create a concept and I'll never work there. See, I will never be the guy that the police call at 3 a.m. and say the alarm is going off. I will never be the manager that the chef's wife calls at 6 a.m. because he came home drunk and he's not going to show up. I would be the investor and the president of a chain that I think I could prove a concept and then franchise. That might be something I do at some point.
Dan Sullivan is very good at that. He writes what is called a one-page memorandum. He goes, here's the idea, here's the money, go execute on this for me. And he gets out of the way. And he does not buy the restaurant. In the sense of run the restaurant.
Right. Yeah, I literally came across him. I don't know. I had clients of mine in my coaching program who had been in strategic coach.
Yes.
So I knew of him, but I didn't study anything of him. And then, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I picked up 10X is better than 2X, or Who Not How, one or the other. Then I got the second one. And then, he does like a book every quarter now where he doesn't even write them. He has a team do that. But I went to Amazon. There were like 52 of them or whatever. I bought them all and I read every single one of them. And I really took it to heart. I mean, I hired a new executive assistant, and I just told him, when I come back from a speech, I need the car filled up with gas and washed. I need food in the refrigerator. Find me some Cuban abuelita who's going to come in here once a week and prepare all my meals and stack them up in the refrigerator. Have Rocio, you handle the housekeeping with her. I need to be in my genius zone, right? And so, like, This show with you, this is the 5th show I've recorded today, because I tell Sam, you have 2 days a week to program me. Do my podcast, guest on other podcasts, meet with clients, do the coaching program, TV hits, radio hits, whatever, doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, chiropractor. You have to do everything in 2 days. The other 5 days are blank. They're only for me, and you can't touch them. And so I can do quality free time, or I can be working in my genius zone. And last year, doing that for the whole year, my God, I'm going to be 67 in a month, right? So if I believed that the normal money things, they'd be saying, well, your earnings years are declining. Now you should be in your wealth preservation year. Man, 2025 was the best year I ever had in revenues for my businesses, the best year I ever had in my investments. My health is the best it's been in 40 years. Relationships, all the, the great stuff. But it comes by, for me, a big part of that is having 5 days of white space in my calendar every week.
And Dan Sullivan's very big about the white space too, creating that time to be able to think and do the stuff. You don't need to do it all. And I think that's where a lot of people get confused, overworked, and they don't think about anything. They just do. And then they wonder why they ended up where they ended up. So definitely not a plan.
That's why we do this podcast episode.
That is correct.
It's time to learn the secrets of life.
What's one truth about success you wish more people understood?
The only free cheese is in the mousetrap.
There you go. What's a lesson that cost you a lot, but was worth every penny?
Getting my business seized by the IRS, because it was the final straw that broke the camel's back, where instead of blaming the president, the economy, my crooked partners, my ex, I looked inside and said, this is a pattern that I'm creating.
Time to rewrite it. There you go. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Take a 2-year sabbatical from social media.
The good news is the younger generation is starting to do that. They've seen it and they're like, we don't want any part of this. And they're turning it off. And so I think the pendulum is starting to shift. Hopefully it catches and we see that happen. If people would like to learn more about you, prosperity, and maybe check out some of your programs, where do they find you?
All right, so all the books are on Amazon.com, of course. For entrepreneurs, the books to read are Mad Genius, Risky is the New Safe, Radical Rebirth. And by the time you're watching this show, there will be a pre-order link for my next book, which is the culmination of my work, called Wealth Without Apology. Pre-order that one. And then everything else, randygage.com is kind of my Starfleet command site. The coaching program, the blogs, the podcast, my speeches, it's all there.
Cool. We'll put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Rocky. Thanks, everybody watching or listening. Peace.
As always, we talk about people's money stories. Have you questioned yours yet? Randy grew up with nothing. Poverty drove him to crime, and yet it also drove him to transformation. We're always infected with mind viruses unless we clean them out. You have to look at your programming and say, is it helping me or isn't it? And how do you deal with prosperity in your life? How do you deal with your health, your wellness, your money, your spiritual harmony? That all comes together so that you can contribute back and do what you love. And of course, risky is the new safe. The world is rapidly changing. You've got to figure it out. If you know someone who might enjoy this episode, do us both a favor. Share it with them. I'd appreciate that. And thank you for listening. Have an abundant week.